Yes, so as I said, today we are thinking about academic IELTS writing task 1, and in particular, we're thinking about charts and graphs. We'll be looking at understanding task 1, writing the introduction and the overview, and also the main body as well, of course. Some useful language, and as I mentioned, time for some questions and answers towards the end. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify and select features of a dynamic chart, use an appropriate structure for your task 1 essay, write a good introduction and overview, and we will look at the main body section as well. And use a range of useful language to describe trends in detail. Okay, so here is our example graph for today. We've got the sentence from the task, which introduces what the information is about. The graph below shows the proportion of 4 different materials that were recycled from 1982 to 2010 in a particular country. Okay. So in general, what you need to do in this task is report the information. So describe the information that you are presented with. In the instructions in the exam, the instructions in the exam will tell you to write at least 150 words, and they will also say that you should spend 20 minutes on this task. There is also another sentence in the task. Here we've got the sentence that introduces what the information is about. But there is also another sentence that tells you that you need to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and making comparisons where relevant. Okay, so that is what you that's what the task tells you that you need to do. Okay, there's a sentence introducing what the information is about, and there's a sentence telling you what you need to do in your response. Okay, although the wording of that task says that you should select and report the key features or the main features, it is actually better if you can report everything. Okay, so you really should be trying to report everything, like all of the information that you are presented with. Okay, so I know that there will be different quantities of information in different tasks. So sometimes the task contains a lot more information. Sometimes it contains significantly less information. So that can, of course, affect how easy or difficult it is to report all of the information. But you should still try to report all of it. Okay. An important point as well is that that is all that you should be trying to do. You should only be reporting the information. You shouldn't be giving your opinion on any of the information. You shouldn't be trying to analyze the information or make any interpretations based on the information that you are presented with. The only thing that you should do in this task is report the information. Okay. Now, I said that you shouldn't interpret, you shouldn't be making interpretations about the data. And the next section here is called interpreting the data. That's because this word can have a couple of different meanings. So when I say that you shouldn't be making any interpretations about the data when you write your response, I mean that in the sense that you shouldn't be analyzing the data. Okay, so I also said that earlier as well. Okay, so you don't make any interpretations. You don't analyze the data. The word interpreting also has another meaning. It means just to understand. So here in this section, we're really thinking about understanding the data, because you need to understand all of the information so that you can then report it. Okay, so in this context, interpreting means understanding. Okay, so when you're trying to understand the information that you are presented with, one thing that you can think about, one thing you should think about, is the type of chart. So for example, here we have got a line graph. If the information that you're presented with is a graph, because that's not the only type of information. There's a wide range of different types of information that you can be presented with. But if you are presented with a graph or a chart, it is quite nice to say what type of graph or chart it is when you start your introduction. So we've got a line graph here. Okay. Of course, you need to have a look at the information, in this case, a graph, and see what's being measured. So, of course, the sentence that introduces the information is about will tell you about that, as well as things like the title of the graph, and of course, just looking at the actual graph itself. Okay, so as it says in the sentence which introduces the information, the graph below shows the proportion of 4 different materials that were recycled from 1982 to 2010 in a particular country. So it's the proportion of 4 different materials that were recycled. That's what we've got measurements about here. That's what's been measured here. Think about the time period as well. Okay, that's obviously important. So we know it's from 1982 to 2010. Something that I would say about this particular graph is that, as I'm sure you can see yourself, this is not the best graph in the world, because it's not completely clear which part of the graph the years refer to. They kind of look like they're not really in the right place. Okay. Don't worry about that for the actual exam though, because although this graph is not completely clear, the graphs that you are presented with in the exam will be clear. Okay, so that's not something that you will need to worry about in the exam. Okay, if that ever did happen in the exam, highly unlikely that it would, but if it did, or even if you're practicing with a graph like this where it's not quite so clear, then obviously the markers would be aware of that too, and they would take that into consideration when marking your response. Okay. Before writing, you might want to think about tenses that would be suitable for using in your response. So in this case, for this particular graph, we've got exact years. So we know when in the past this information refers to. Past simple is definitely going to be a suitable tense for this particular graph. That doesn't mean that that should be the only tense that you should be using. Okay, it just means that it's an important tense for writing about this particular graph. And key features. So we will just come on to that. Okay. Here we go, key features. So when I said earlier that when you report the information, you should be trying to report all of it. However, one of the sections in your response is the general overview. And when you write the general overview, you need to explain what the information shows in general. So it's a good idea to identify the main points so that you can write about those in the general overview. Okay. So it says here, select 2 or 3 main points. That is not the advice that I would give. If we're thinking about the general overview, then the number of points that you make in the general overview will depend on the information that you are presented with. General overviews will vary in length and in the number of points, depending on the information that you're presented with. So sometimes there might just be 1 or 2 points in the general overview, but other times there could be 3 or 4. Okay, depends on the information that you're presented with. And then thinking about the main body section, so as I said before, even though the wording of the task does tell you to report the main features or the key features, you should actually be trying to report everything. So in the main body, you should be reporting all of the information. So over on the left again here, it says describe these describe these in 1 to 3 sentences after your introduction. So that's just what I've been talking about. That's the general overview section. So again, there is no particular number of sentences that you should include in the general overview. As I just said, general overviews will be varying lengths, therefore they'll have varying number of sentences, depending on the information that you are presented with. Okay. This is a good point though. On the left, don't include detailed data in the overview. So that the general overview is for explaining what the information shows in general. And then when you move on to the main body, that is the part where you go into specifics. Okay, so here are some key features from the example graph that we're looking at today. And the questions that you can see down the side, like highest, lowest, biggest change, smallest change, these are examples of the type of questions that you should ask about the data when you are trying to decide what to include in your general overview. So these are the kind of things that you should be writing about in your general overview. So for this particular graph, the material that is that was recycled the most, or has the highest recycling rate, is paper and cardboard. Okay, and then that's followed by glass. Whereas the one with the lowest recycling rate is plastics. The one with the biggest change in its recycling rate is aluminium cans. And the one with the smallest change is, again, plastics. Okay, so these are all the kind of things that you can be writing about in the general overview to explain what the information shows in general. So here we've got an overview of the structure. So there are 3 sections that you need to have in your response to academic IELTS writing task 1. So the first section is the introduction. Okay, so that's 1 paragraph. The second section is the general overview. So that is the 2nd paragraph. Okay, so that's a separate paragraph to the introduction. And then the 3rd section is the main body. You can see here that the main body has been separated into 2 parts. But it's important to know that the number of paragraphs that you have in the main body depends on the information that you are presented with. So you need to be able to look at the information that you are presented with and decide yourself how it's best to group information together. And then each of those groups would be a separate paragraph in the main body. Okay. So let's have a look at each of these sections in a little bit more detail. Okay. So first, the introduction. So in the introduction, you need to introduce what the information is about. So in order to do that, you can paraphrase the sentence from the task itself, the sentence that introduces what the information is about. Okay. It says here that you can do that in 1 or 2 sentences. So again, there are no specific rules about the number of sentences, but that is usually true. Okay, so the introduction for IELTS writing task 1 can often, in fact, just be written in 1 sentence. Of course, though, as with all of the sections, the length of the introduction, the information that you need to include in the introduction will depend on the information that you are presented with. So sometimes it might take 2 sentences to write that. It is unlikely to be longer than that, though. Okay, so usually 1 sentence and sometimes maybe 2. Okay. Then we've got the general overview. So as I've said before, the general overview is where you explain what the information shows in general. So you can see here on the slides, it says outline 3 or 4 main points and write 2 to 4 sentences. But as I've said before, there are no rules about the number of points or the number of sentences to have in the general overview. That is something that you need to decide yourself. This is part of all of what you're being assessed on. Okay, you need to be able to look at the information. You need to be able to identify the points that you need to make in general about the information in the general overview. And then all of that will affect the length of the general overview. Okay, so the number of points and the number of sentences here again will be based on the information that you're presented with. Okay, so some general overviews will be shorter, some will be longer. Okay, and then we've got the main body. So here you can see it's been separated into 2 parts, suggesting 2 paragraphs. But as I said before, number of paragraphs depends on the information that you're presented with. But what you do need to do in this section is write about the specifics. Okay, so in this part, it's really important that you include the figures. So you need to include the figures from, in this case, a graph. That is something which in fact is quite different to the general overview because you do not include figures in the general overview. Okay, so don't include figures in the general overview. Keep those for the main body. When you are going into the specifics in the main body, that is when you include the figures. So the second point about the main body here is again suggesting a particular number of sentences, but as I've said before, there is actually no particular number of sentences that you should have in each paragraph of the main body. The number of sentences is affected by the information that you are presented with. Different paragraphs in the main body could be different lengths as well, so different number of points, different number of sentences. Okay, it all just depends on the information that you are presented with, and a part of your job as the writer of the response is to be able to look at the information, decide how to sensibly group different parts of it together, okay? And those groups then form your paragraphs. Okay. Oh, need to drink something. So much talking, hurting my throat. Oh, that's so much better. Okay, so here is our example graph again, and again the sentence from the task, which introduces what the information is about. And we're going to think about writing the introduction next. So as I mentioned before, the basis of your introduction should be the sentence from the task, which tells you what the information shows, okay? The sentence that introduces what the information is about. And so you should try to paraphrase that. So try to express the meaning using other words. So to do that, to a certain extent, you can use synonyms and change the grammar, okay? Of course, you should try to be accurate and precise with that. That goes for everything in your response. This last point here says, don't write a list of more than 5 items. But again, what I would say about that is that there are no rules about the number of items that you can list. In this particular graph, if we're thinking about the different materials, there are 4. We've got paper and cardboard, that's 1. Glass containers and aluminium cans and plastics. So we've got 4 here, but you could be presented with a graph that had 5, for example, and you might want to list all 5 of them. Okay, you don't necessarily have to do that. I want to say that as well, but you can. Okay, so there's no rule saying that like you can't like list more than 5 items, okay, or like, oh, 4 or 5, well, that's okay, but 6 or 7, no, they don't do that. Okay, that's just not a rule at all. Okay. I guess the point that's being made here is that if the information that you are presented with does give you information about an extremely high number of items, then a list with a ridiculously high number of items wouldn't be that great. Okay, but there are no specific rules about the number of items that you can list here. Okay, but yes, I mean a ridiculously long list would be a bit silly. But there isn't a rule that says, oh, if there are up to 5 items, you can list them, but more than 5, don't do that. Like, there's no rule like that at all. Okay. So just get past this bit. Okay, here we go. So we're going to have a look at an introduction. you can see we've got some words in different colors highlighted in the sentence from the task that introduces what the information is about. And at the moment we've got shows underlined. So instead of saying shows, we could have something like illustrates. But shows is perfectly fine. Lots of people feel like they can't write shows in their response because it's used in the task, and it like that usually is in fact it's I say it invariably is the word that's used in the task, and sometimes people think, oh, I really need to use a different word, I must use a synonym. And sometimes they end up using words that aren't really appropriate. Shows is definitely an appropriate word, okay? And I can understand why people want to use a different one because they want to vary their vocabulary. But your vocabulary is assessed on a whole, okay? So it's your vocabulary throughout the task, okay? Not just based on like one word from the wording of the task itself. So anyway, next you can see we've got proportion and recycled underlined. So we could have recycling rates. Okay, so the graph illustrates the recycling rates. Okay, and next we've got 4 different materials underlined. So we could have 4 types of materials. And we do in fact have them listed here. Okay, paper and cardboard, glass, aluminium cans, and plastics. In, so from the task, we've got a particular country. And here we've got in one country. And for the final bit, the wording in the task is from 1982 to 2010. And here we've got between 1982 and 2010. So just notice the difference in the words that are used here, and notice which words are used together. Okay, so we use from and to together. Okay, so from 1982 to 2010. And we use between and together. So between 1982 and 2010. Okay, so it needs to be from and to together, or it needs to be between and together. Okay, we can't mix them up. Okay, so from, to, between, and. Okay, those are the words that need to go together. Okay, so we've got the whole introduction here now, so let's just read through it. The graph illustrates the recycling rates of 4 types of material: paper and cardboard, glass, aluminium cans, and plastic, in one country between 1982 and 2010. Okay, so next we are going to have a look at some language that you can use to write about different types of change that you might see in graphs. So you can see different types of changes that you might need to write about illustrated on these example graphs. Okay. So we saw a graph showing an increase, a graph showing a decrease, a graph where things stay the same, a graph where things go up and down, and we saw a graph that reaches a high point, but you could also have a graph that reaches a low point as well. So we're going to look at different words and phrases that you can use to talk about these different changes. So you're going to see the words, and you need to decide which column they should go into. So we've got the first one here, rise. So each of the columns are numbered. So number 1 for an increase, number 2 for a decrease, number 3 for stay the same, 4 for going up and down, and 5 for highs and lows. So which part of this table should rise go into? You can put your responses into the chat box, and I know loads of people have been doing it already. And I can see lots and lots of number ones. Okay, great. So well done. Good. Okay, next one, remain constant. Where can this one go? What's the best place in the table? Yeah, lots and lots of number threes. Good, good, stay the same. Okay, fluctuate. What's the best place for this? Yeah, great, good, lots of fours, good. Reach a peak. Where does this one go? Yeah, lots and lots of fives. Yeah, so for a high point, reaching a peak. The highest point. Okay, the next one's come up in the table already. Remain steady. Okay, so fall. Where is the best place for this one? Yep, good. A decrease. Good, good. I saw lots of twos there. Grow. Where can we put this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, good. Lots of number ones again. This is an increase. Rise and fall. Where does this go? Yeah. Ooh, okay. Okay, I'm mainly seeing fours, but I did see a few other numbers as well. Okay, so number 4. Okay, so we're talking about things going up and down here, rising and falling. Okay, decline. Yeah, great, good. Lots and lots of number twos for decrease, good. Vary. Where should we put vary? Ooh, interesting. Okay, I'm seeing quite a few different numbers this time. Okay, but I think I am mainly seeing fours though. Okay, so 4 is where it goes. Okay, so when things go up or down, when they fluctuate, they are varying. Okay, fall to a minimum. I like that word. I like to say minimum. You can try saying that too, but not in the exam. Don't write it in the exam. Just say minimum or write minimum in the exam. Okay, so anyway, I can see a lot of fives, which is great because that's where it goes. Okay, climb. Where should we put climb in this table? Yes, good. Lots of ones. Of course, it's for an increase. Stay stable. Where are we going to put this one? Yeah, good. Lots of threes. Drop. Where does this one go? Yeah, lots and lots of number twos. Good. And I hope you all get the last one correct because there's only one spot in the table left. Of course, it goes into column number 5. Okay, so yep, so reach a maximum. So the highest point. Great. Okay, so well done for that. That was really good. Excellent answers. Fantastic. Okay. Okay, so let's look at some of this language in action. So for this one, if we say that this graph is about cars, we could say the number of cars increased. Or there was an in the number of cars. So in the first sentence, we've got increased, which is a verb. So if we want to use the same word, but in a different form, what would we put in the gap? Yes, good. I can see in the comments, increase. Good, right, well done. Okay, so there was an increase in the number of cars. So we've got the noun here. The number of cars experienced an, what do we put here? What form do we need? So we're keeping the word the same. We just want to get the form correct. So increase. Okay, it's the noun again. Okay, So the number of cars experienced an increase. Okay. So this time we have the number of cars experienced a increase. So we've already got increase, so we're not looking for anything to do with that word. But we could add in something else to describe the increase. So this is really good for varying your vocabulary. Okay. So, so here we're needing an adjective. So you can use adjectives to to demonstrate a wider range of vocabulary. At other points, you can also add in adverbs to vary your vocabulary more, to demonstrate your range of vocabulary more. Okay. Okay, so I've seen lots of nice suggestions in the chat box. So yeah, a dramatic increase, a huge increase. Okay. A rapid increase. Okay, a significant increase. Okay, those are all really nice suggestions. Okay, and a steady increase is what we've got here. Okay, so here is another one. So the number of cars fluctuated, then fell. Okay. I think I'll just say I don't really feel that this sentence accurately describes the graph that we can see here. But that aside, we'll still complete the gaps. Okay, so we've got the number of cars fluctuated, then fell. So the same as what we had in the original sentence, but we can add something else in order to use a wider range of vocabulary. So in this case, we would be needing an adverb. Okay, so we saw before using an adjective to demonstrate a wider range of vocabulary. I said you could also use adverbs when it's the right time to do that. And here is the right time for an adverb. As I said, I don't really feel that this sentence actually accurately describes what we can see in this graph, but let's just think of words that we could use anyway. Okay, so yeah, dramatically, sharply, drastically. Yeah, these are all good suggestions in the chat box. Okay, so nice, good. And here we have got sharply. Okay, so the number of cars fluctuated, then fell sharply. After fluctuating, the number of cars experienced a. So if we just go back to the original sentence, the number of cars fluctuated, then fell. So here we have got fell, the verb. If we want to use the same word, but in a different form, what would that be? After fluctuating, the number of cars experienced a. I can see some people have put it. I can see some other people suggesting different words as well. Okay, but here we're just changing the form. Okay, so a fall. Okay, so after fluctuating, the number of cars experienced a fall. Okay, and again, we've got after fluctuating, the number of cars experienced a fall, but we've also got a gap now. So we could use another word to describe the type of fall. So an adjective here this time. So a dramatic fall. Yeah. A significant fall, a great fall. Okay, those are all nice suggestions. Okay, good. So we've got sharp here. Okay, so after fluctuating, the number of cars experienced a sharp fall. Okay, so a great way to demonstrate a wider range of vocabulary is to use adjectives and adverbs. Okay, so you can really like add a lot more vocabulary and demonstrate a wider range of vocabulary when you're writing by doing that. And of course, that's a good thing to do because you're assessed on your vocabulary, of course, and you want to try to demonstrate as wide a range of vocabulary as possible. Okay. Make sure, though, that when you are writing, that what you're writing does actually accurately describe the information that you're presented with. So as I've said, I don't really feel that these sentences do accurately describe the graph that you can see at the top of the slide here. So of course, it's important that you are using the vocabulary accurately as well to describe the information that you're presented with. Okay, that's really important too. Okay. Okay, so what we've got here is some information from the publicly available band scores for one of the assessment areas. So there are 4 assessment areas. There is task achievement or task response. There is coherence and cohesion. There's lexical range and accuracy, and grammatical range and accuracy. Okay, so I think it's just lexical range actually. Yeah. Anyway, the one that we're focusing on here is the first one, so task achievement or task response, and this one is all about actually addressing the task, so answering the question, in other words. And the reason why we're looking at this is because this makes it clear why it is so important to include a general overview. So remember, the general overview is the second paragraph in your response, and it's the paragraph where you explain what the information shows in general. So it's really important that you have that because not having it is really bad for your band score for task achievement or task response. So the most significant part here is the difference between band 5 and band 6. So let's focus on that. So if you look at band 6, you can see that it says, round about the middle of what we've got here, it says no clear overview. Whereas if we look at band 6, it says here, right at the start here, presents an overview. So notice the difference between band 5 and band 6. So band 6 presents an overview. Band 5, no clear overview. So what this is telling you is that in order to get band 6 or above for task response or task achievement, you must have a general overview. Okay, if you do not include the general overview, the highest score that you can get for task achievement or task response is band 5, regardless of how well you address the task in other ways. Okay, so you might write like in terms of addressing the task, you might write the perfect introduction and you might write the perfect main body, but you haven't included a general overview. And it's the fact that you haven't included a general overview which will mean that the maximum you can get for task response or task achievement is band 5. So in order to get into band 6 and above for task achievement or task response, it really is vital that you have a general overview, okay? And sometimes people don't write it, okay? So this should make it really, really clear to you that you must have that paragraph, okay? You have to have the general overview, okay? So if you are one of those people who has not been including the general overview, make sure that you do include that. Okay, everybody needs a general overview. Okay, so let's think about actually writing it then. So earlier on, we identified these points about this graph. So we're going to have a look at incorporating these into the general overview. So we're starting with a gap. So what do you think could be the first word in the general overview? What's a really good word to start your general overview with? Yes, good. Overall, everybody's writing overall. Fantastic. Okay, that's a great word to use. I would highly recommend starting your general overview with the word overall. It really indicates to the examiner that this is your general overview, okay? And you want to make the examiner's job easy. So use this word to tell them this is the start of my general overview, and the examiner will be really happy that you've included that, because then the examiner will be thinking, oh, good, hopefully I'll be able to give this person 6 or more for task response or task achievement. Hopefully the rest of their response in terms of addressing the task will be up to that level. Okay. Anyway, let's continue. So overall, paper and cardboard recycling rates were, what do you think? What could go in this gap? Put your responses into the chat box. Okay, so yep, I've got the highest here, and I see a few people put that in the chat box as well. Okay. So overall, paper and cardboard rates were the highest by glass containers. What could go in this gap? Yeah, a few people suggesting followed. Okay, you can see that's what we've got here. Good, right, well done. Recycling of aluminium cans experienced the most significant what? Yeah, the most significant change, the most significant increase, the most significant rise. Yeah, okay, so increase is what we've got here. Plastic recycling rates were the lowest. What do you think for this one? So recycling of aluminium cans experienced the most significant increase. Yeah, while plastic recycling rates were the lowest. Lots of people suggesting while. Okay, that's what we've got here. Rising only over the period. What could go here? What do you think? The reason I'm not speaking is because I haven't seen anything in the chat box yet. Okay, lots of responses now. Okay, slightly. Lots of people suggesting slightly. Okay, and that's what we've got here. Great, good. Okay, so okay, let's read through it. So overall, paper and cardboard recycling rates were the highest, followed by glass containers. Recycling of aluminium cans experienced the most significant increase, while plastic recycling rates were the lowest, rising only slightly over the period. Okay, so moving on to the main body next. So remember, this is where we go into the specifics. So there are more gaps for you to complete here. So in 1982, about of all paper and cardboard was recycled. What are your suggestions for this? Have a look at the graph. Tell me what you think. Okay, so I can see lots of people saying 65%, and that's what we've got here. Okay, great. This figure, what do you think comes next? I know you don't have much context to go on here. So fluctuated. Okay. I know some of you suggested that. Okay. So this figure fluctuated before reaching a of 80% in 1994. Yeah, yeah. Good. Yeah, peak. Lots and lots of people suggested that. Good. From then on, however, it decreased to a level of 70% in 2010. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, we've got some people saying things like slightly, some people saying dramatically, so they're quite different. Okay. Steadily is what we've got here. Okay. In 1992, of all glass containers were recycled. What do you think for this one? Okay. Okay, so here we've got half. So I know some people suggested half, some people said 50%. Yeah. This figure to 40% in 1990. What could go here? Yeah, this figure fell. This figure decreased. Yeah. Those are all nice suggestions. Okay, and I think somebody also suggested what we've got here too, which is dropped. Okay. But then experienced a gradual from 40% to 60% by 2010. Yeah, a gradual rise, a gradual increase. Those are all nice suggestions. Okay, and increase is what we've got here. Okay, so let's read through what we've got here then. In 1982, about 65% of paper and cardboard was recycled. This figure fluctuated before reaching a peak of 80% in 1994. From then on, however, it decreased steadily to a level of 70% in 2010. In 1982, half of all glass containers were recycled. This figure dropped to 40% in 1990, but then experienced a gradual increase from 40% to 60% by 2010. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the verbs. So we've got the past simple being used in both the active voice and the passive voice. So was recycled and were recycled in the passive voice. Okay, and then others in the active voice there. Linking expressions. Before, from, then, on, however, but then. Using adverbs and or adjectives to show a wider range of vocabulary. Okay, steadily, gradual. And we already mentioned linking expressions. Linking expressions are a type of cohesive device. And we've also got reference and substitution. Okay, so this figure and it says it in the side. Can't see that highlighted. Oh, there it is. Found it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this figure, so referring back to 65% initially there. Okay, and then using it. So this figure fluctuated before reaching a peak from then on. However, it, so that's referring back to the figure as well there. Okay. Okay, right. So next one, I think I might just go through it a bit more quickly as we're getting close to the end of our time. Don't worry, I'll always stay for a bit longer. I don't mind staying. I like doing this. Okay, so aluminium cans were first recycled in 1986, starting at about 5%. This figure climbed rapidly. And by 2010, it had risen to 45%. On the other hand, recycling of plastics did not begin. I accidentally muted myself for a moment there. On the other hand, recycling of plastics did not begin until 1990 and grew constantly but slowly, rising from around 2% to about 8% over the period. Okay, so so looking at the verbs again, so we have got some past simple again. So were recycled. So in the passive voice there, okay, and then we've got climbed, did not begin, grew, okay, in the active voice. And we have got some nice past perfect too. Okay, so had risen there as well. Okay. Linking expressions on the other hand, and but. Adverbs and adjectives. Rapidly, constantly, slowly. Okay, so I think we've just got adverbs there this time. Okay, and just like I said last time, linking expressions that we already looked at are a type of cohesive device. Reference and substitution is another one here. Okay, so this figure, again, referring back to the figure, which was 5%. Okay, and then it later, still to refer to that. Okay, so we've got the whole thing here. So let's have a read through all of it in its entirety. The chart illustrates the recycling rates of 4 different materials: paper and cardboard, glass, aluminium cans, and plastic in one country between 1982 and 2010. Overall, paper and cardboard recycling rates were the highest, followed by glass containers. Recycling of aluminium cans experienced the most significant increase, while plastic recycling rates were the lowest, rising only slightly over the period. In 1982, about 65% of paper and cardboard was recycled. This figure fluctuated before reaching a peak of 80% in 1994. From then on, however, it decreased steadily to a level of 70% in 2010. In 1982, half of all glass containers were recycled. This figure dropped to 40% in 1990, but then experienced a gradual increase from 40% to 60% in 2010. Aluminium cans were first recycled in 1986, starting at about 5%. This figure climbed rapidly, and by 2010, it had risen to 45%. On the other hand, recycling of plastics did not begin until 1990 and grew constantly but slowly, rising from around 2% to about 8% over the period. Okay, so some final tips. Don't start writing right away, make a plan. Okay, very important to plan before you start your writing. Don't spend more than 20 minutes on task 1. So as I mentioned before, the instructions will tell you that you should spend 20 minutes on task 1. The whole exam is 60 minutes. So it's 20 minutes for task 1 and then the other 40 minutes for task 2. Don't count your words. It's a waste of time. Just don't do it. And do practice. So practice with different types of information that you can be presented with. We've been looking at graphs today, but graphs are not the only type of information that you can be presented with. You can be presented with graphs and charts, or tables, or a diagram that shows a process, or you can be presented with maps or plans. And one that often gets forgotten is that you can also be presented with diagrams of objects as well. Quite an interesting one, that one. Okay. Okay, so Before I have a look at your questions, I will just tell you, if you don't already know, that you can have lessons with us. I'll read out what it says here. So one-on-one online IELTS with tutor. Receive guidance and instruction from experienced IELTS tutors on how to approach and overcome the challenge of the IELTS exam. A customized course to meet the specific goals of each individual. Flexible class schedule that can be adapted to accommodate the preferences and availability of the student. So the lessons can be tailored to your needs. So if you want to concentrate on all parts of the IELTS exam, you can have lessons about all parts of the exam. However, if you feel like you just need a bit of help with one particular part, or maybe a couple of parts of the exam, you can have lessons just about those parts. And also the lessons can happen at a time which suits you too. So they can be scheduled at the time that you would like to have them. And the best part is that you can even have lessons with me. Oh. So my name is Gillian Scott. I will put it in the chat box. There it is. So if you would like to have lessons with me when you contact us, you can just say that. I'd like to have lessons with Gillian Scott, please. So I will just put my name in the chat box.